Railswest Railroad Museum is located on 1512 South Main Street in Council Bluffs, Iowa, and is open Thursdays through Saturdays, 11 to 4, and open the first Sunday of each month, 11 to 4. Also, the Railswest Railroad Museum has exhibits inside the Rock Island Depot building and a rail yard with trains you can check out and go inside and check out the interior and a lot of history to explore. Also, the Railswest Railroad Museum has an HO model railroad inside the building, and the HO model railroad is of Omaha and Council Bluffs from the old times of railroad history of what it was like in the past. The Rock Island Depot building was constructed in 1899 on the south edge of downtown Council Bluffs, Iowa. Today it is the last 19th century railroad depot still standing in Council Bluffs and is operated as a museum and model railroad display by the Historical Society of Pottawatomie County and the Greater Omaha Society of Model Engineers. Also, the depot was built for the Chicago, Rock Island, and Pacific Railroad, one of 15 rail lines serving Council Bluffs, Iowa. The last Rock Island passenger train pulled out of the depot on May 31st, 1970. March 31st, 1980 was the last day of operations for the Rock Island Railroad. Engineer Grenville M. Dodge surveyed the westward route of the Rock Island Railroad to Council Bluffs in 1853. Years later, Dodge would survey the route west from Council Bluffs that enabled the city to become the eastern terminus of the Transcontinental Railroad. The construction of the Transcontinental Railroad played a major role in the development of the Southwest Iowa and vice versa. The history of this era is well preserved in the depot and museum. It is the last survivor of a half-dozen passenger depots which at one time dotted the Council Bluffs landscape. In 1984, the Society of the Greater Omaha Society of Model Railroad Engineers joined forces with Council Bluffs to save one of the last remaining depots in Council Bluffs. In 1985, the city of Council Bluffs leased the depot to Society with instructions to restore the depot into a tourist attraction and an information center. Today, the Rock Island Depot is where railroad history is preserved and is the Railswest Museum in Council Bluffs, Iowa for all to enjoy and see.
Right behind you is Chicago, Burlington, Quincy 915.
Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy 915 was built by Burlington and Missouri River shops in Havelock, Nebraska in 1902 and is the 44th steam locomotive built by that factory and is a 460 10-wheeler type steam locomotive and is a K4 class steam locomotive. Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy 915 was originally numbered as and had the road name as Burlington and Missouri River 44 and was a coal burner and then was one of several later converted to burn oil and fitted with 64-foot drivers for local and branch line work. Later, Burlington and Missouri River 44 was then renumbered and given the road name as Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy 715 and reconverted as a coal burner and then in 1951 as Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy 915. Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy 915 was once used to haul freight and used for shunting and switching for the Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy Railroad. And also, Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy 915 was then retired and donated to the city of Council Bluffs, Iowa, and displayed in Dodge Park in Council Bluffs, Iowa, with Union Pacific 814, the Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy Omaha Club Car, and Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy Caboose 13855, and sat there till 2001, and then moved to the Railswest Museum to be part of the museum, and where they are all today. Also, Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy 915 is one of 5 surviving Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy 460s that survive today. And 915 can be seen here at the Railswest Railroad Museum in Council Bluffs, Iowa for display. And you can also check out the cab and even sit where the engineer and fireman used to sit and even ring the locomotive's bell.
That's how it's done. What do you see right behind the Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy Omaha Club Car?
Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy Omaha Club was built by Pullman in 1929 and is a lounge car. This car ran on the Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy Railroad between Chicago, Illinois, and Lincoln, Nebraska during the 1930s and 1940s. Originally, this car was built for the Pullman Company and had this name. Later, it was sold to the Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy Railroad and again kept the name. The carpeting, furniture, and lampshades are original to the car. Some items have needed minor repair, and yet other items have been added to assist in creating the mood of the 1940s. The car was used as a lounge car purely for smoking, relaxing, or playing cards and getting a light meal. The passengers using this car would have had assigned seats somewhere else in the train. This changed due to a fuel shortage in World War II. At that time, the railroad was not allowed to use the car as only a social car. Later, it was then retired. It was put on display in Dodge Park with Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy Steam Locomotive 915, Union Pacific Steam Locomotive 814, and Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy Caboose 13855 till 2001. They then all got moved to the Railswest Railroad Museum for display. Today, it can be seen on display at the Railswest Railroad Museum in Council Bluffs, Iowa, where it is seen on display today, and you can also visit the interior of the car as well.
right behind me is Chicago, Burlington, Quincy 13855.
Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy 13855 was built in 1917 and is a one-way car cupola caboose. Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy 13855 was used as a train crew's office, conductor, and brakeman when used on the Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy Railroad. Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy 13855 has a heated stove, has a wood stove that was heated, had the interior heated during cold weather, but it did have running water and a toilet that flushed onto the tracks between the rails or beside the rails. Also, Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy 13855 was retired, and before being part of Railswest, it sat in Dodge Park with Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy 915 and the Omaha Club Car and Union Pacific 814 till 2001, and then moved to the Railswest Museum where it is today. Also, Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy 13855 had been blank for in late 2011 to 2012. It got repainted and cosmetic work, and it had letters and numbers painted on, and looks like it is now like it was in the past. Also, since Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy 13855 got put on its final resting spot as here for display, you can also visit the interior of the caboose and see what's inside, what it looked like in the inside in the past, which it is today. Union Pacific 814 was built by Alco in Schenectady, New York in 1937 and is the 68,822nd steam locomotive built by that factory and is a 484 Northern type steam locomotive and is an FEF1 class steam locomotive. Union Pacific 814 was built to burn coal, but it was too expensive, but then 814 and all the other FEFs were converted to burn oil. Union Pacific 814 was used to haul freight on the Union Pacific Railroad and lived in Cheyenne, Wyoming, where it was normally stored, and even was used as a passenger engine for the Union Pacific Railroad. Union Pacific 814 also was retired between 1957 and 1962 and was also donated to the city of Council Bluffs, Iowa, but before 814 came to Railswest, Union Pacific 814 sat in Dodge Park with Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy 915 and the Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy Omaha Club Car and Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy Caboose 13855 till 2001. Then all were moved to be on static display at the Railswest Museum for static display. Also, Union Pacific 814 is one of 4 surviving Union Pacific 484s that survive today. 4 Union Pacific FEFs for short that remain today. Union Pacific 814 can be seen here at Railswest Railroad Museum in Council Bluffs, Iowa for display, and also you can even check out the engine while you visit the museum and even climb into the cab and even sit where the engineer and fireman used to sit as well.
right behind me is Union Pacific 462,536.
Union Pacific 462,536 was built as a single plug-door boxcar, which it is currently, and also is one of the several Union Pacific boxcars built. Union Pacific 462,536 was used in the past as part of freight trains, as it hauled all kinds of cargo once hauled in the past, such as boxes, materials, and all kinds of different products boxcars usually haul, as this boxcar was used on the Union Pacific Railroad. Also, Union Pacific 462,536 was also then later on retired, and then came to be part of the Railswest Railroad Museum in Council Bluffs, Iowa, where it is today on display today. Also, you'll even see on the boxcar on the side it says, "Ship and Travel, the Automated Railway."
Okay, you can see right here, this is a bell standing on a post, and it's next to the mail car, and also it's here on display for you to ring, so it's unknown which engine it came from, so let's see it ringing.
That's how it's done. What you see right behind me is Union Pacific 5908.
Union Pacific 5908 was built by the Budd Company in 1963 and is a railway post office car. Union Pacific 5908 was once painted in a Union Pacific scheme, I do believe, and it's currently painted in a stainless steel look. Also, Union Pacific 5908 was renumbered as Maintenance of Way 903,690 in 1973. Also, Union Pacific 5908 was used as an RPO, Railway Post Office coach, when it was numbered as 5908, which it still is today. Also was used to deliver and sort mail on when train workers were on this coach sorting mail. Also, Union Pacific 5908 was then retired and then came to be part of the Railswest Railroad Museum in Council Bluffs, Iowa, and can be seen here on display, and you can even go inside the mail car and see how the interior and can even pull the mail grabber up, and you can also pretend you're grabbing mail while the train is moving as well, but it's stationary though, and see how they sorted mail in the past as well. Okay, I'm going to show you all the model railroad display, and it looks different. So I'll get behind the camera and show you around. So here we go. Okay, so here we go up the stairs now. The model railroad display is going to look very different than how I made part one here. So notice anything different? That's right, this used to be an HO scale model railroad modeled after Omaha and Council Bluffs. But the original model railroad that was displayed in here was moved out by someone who recently purchased it back in 2019. And that's G scale and O scale that goes around here these days. And let's look around down here at these pictures on the wall. If you want to pause and read all this, you can. I'll pan down. And here's an old picture. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to show you all the exhibits that are inside the depot waiting room. So we're not going to go through this door, but the other door on the other side of this picnic table. So I'll get behind the camera and show you the exhibits inside the depot. So here we go. Okay, here we are entering the depot. Here's an old switchboard, and there's some books. And right there, this is a messenger's pole. As you can tell, that's an order hoop, which you can tell by that piece of paper right there. That's an example of how it worked back then. Here's the station agent's office, and also the agent would get a message, would tap out a message on this typewriter right here, and would place it on that hoop, like this one, the same kind that we saw outside the office. And would run outside and reached out to the train crew like so. And that's an old telephone right there. And here's a Lionel layout that they don't actually operate, but it's been here for years. Look at all this in the case. There's some in this case right here, and some lanterns, some political buttons, looks like. If you want to pause and read that. Yeah, let's go into the other waiting room. This is called the women's waiting room. That waiting room we were just in was the men's waiting room because women and children had to be separated from men back then during the time of this depot. Here's some old lanterns and old railroad brochures. Look at all these in this case, as well as right here. And look at this velocipede in this old phone booth. Some old plates, some pictures of like military people and such. Some old tea sets. This uniform right here. Look at all that in that case. These old suitcases. That old wagon. A model of a stagecoach. And look at these pictures of these UP steam engines. And those cardboards. Train. That's pretty old. And here's when the railroad was completed in 1869. And look at all that. Pretty cool, huh? What you see right behind me is Chicago, Rock Island, and Pacific 17130. Chicago, Rock Island, and Pacific 17130 was built by the International Car Company in Kenton, Ohio in 1971 and is a CE 13-4 Class bay window caboose. It was used on the back of freight trains for many years and also was used as the train crew's office as well. Also, it was built originally for the Chicago, Rock Island, and Pacific Railroad, and this is the original number. Then, in 1980, the Chicago, Rock Island, and Pacific Railroad merged to the Union Pacific Railroad and was renumbered to 4548. Then, in 1985, the caboose was retired, and then in 1988, it was donated to the Historical Society of Potawatomi and was put on display at the Railswest Railroad Museum in Council Bluffs, Iowa, and was repainted to its Chicago, Rock Island, and Pacific look and original number as well. Also, you can visit the interior of the car as well.
What you see right behind me is the Iowa Power and Light Company diesel.
The Iowa Power and Light Company diesel was built by the Plymouth Locomotive Works in Plymouth, Ohio in 1953 and is the 5700th diesel locomotive built by that factory and is a 45-ton center cab type diesel locomotive. For many years, this locomotive was meant to switch cars loaded with coal around at the Mid-America Energy Power Plant in Des Moines, Iowa. Later, it was retired, as the Energy Center created the need for more space. They then donated the locomotive to the Railswest Railroad Museum in Council Bluffs, Iowa in 2007. Today, it can be seen here at the Railswest Railroad Museum in Council Bluffs, Iowa, where it is preserved today.
Well, I hope you all enjoyed learning about trains with me today in Matthew Lapp Train Guy segment show. Also, I hope to see you all again in the next segment. And if you didn't subscribe to my channel just yet, the subscribe button is down below in the video screen. Just down below the video screen, I mean. Also, if you didn't subscribe, be sure to. And if you didn't follow the Facebook page yet, here's where you'll want to go. And if you didn't give the Instagram page a follow yet, here's where you want to go as well. Be sure to buy your merch at teesprings.com. I'll have the link in the description box below with Facebook and Instagram. And remember to subscribe to the Train Guy. So this is Matthew Lapp, host of Matthew Lapp Train Guy segment show. Sign out. Until next time, all aboard.